Hey there, Kimberly here with Knit for Brands, and today I'm going to show you the progress that I've been making on my J.W. Anderson Harry Styles cardigan, so stay tuned. Hey, it's Kimberly here. So I am making some really good progress on this thing. I got to tell you, I ran into a little bit of a problem. Not sure if it was my fault or if it was the fault of the pattern. I'm going to blame the pattern, but could have been me. It just got a little confusing, and it seemed like I needed to do 6 panels across the back and then like 3 on the front. But as it turns out, I need to do 5 panels on the back and like 2 on the front and 1 on the side. So I ended up having more progress than I thought I did. So that's good. And I'm going to have to jig it around a little bit, but it's coming out really cool. So I wanted to show you. So this is the back here. Hold it up. This is what I finished. All right. So, and then the pattern, okay, so the pattern gives you like these ideas for a tutorial on each one of the stitches, like I showed you last week. These stitches are so simple, but then I found that I wanted to use the colors kind of in my own way and where I wanted. And so I started like not really off-roading it, but I was like, you know what? I think this green I would like better in this stitch because it's sitting next to that or whatever. So I did change it up a little bit, but you can see like I love how these colors are coming together. Maybe not quite as primary, but it's pretty close actually. And then I showed you last week how you could do some crochet tutorials, some crochet stitches. I found this pattern on Pinterest where someone had actually crocheted it. So I'm including it here so you guys can see like the difference between the knit and the crochet. But let me tell you, man, this thing is going along so fast. Even as a knit pattern, I'm digging it. What I had found was I was a little bit nervous because I thought I was going to run into some yarn chicken where I wasn't going to have enough yarn to finish it. Because like this pattern here, which is different than what it called for, I just was like, let's just go for it. I thought I was using up too much yarn and I needed the red for another spot. So I found this yarn in my stash that is literally like donkey's years old. This yarn might actually be one of the oldest yarns in my stash, meaning that it's probably one of the very first yarns that I ever bought. It's got to be 10, 11 years old. So I don't even know why I bought it. I probably just loved it back in the day, you know, when I was naive and I was just a wee little crocheter. I didn't know you buy yarn for specific projects. I just bought yarn because I liked the way it looked, and then it just sits there. And I literally had nothing. I didn't know what to do with this yarn, but it turns out I have like 5 skeins of it. It is Cascade Yarns. It is a 1/28 superwash merino wool. So it's the same yarn as this guy. Same weight. This is bulky. This is bulky. And I was like, that's going to go together so well. And the colors absolutely tied in. So I love how I went with, like, look at this right here. You got the yellow, and then we variegate into the dark red, the orange, the bright red, the yellow, and all those colors are coming up in this thing, right? So I've got the red here. I've got the red and yellow here. And I was like, if this is not the perfect yarn, like this yarn literally tore open the doors of my yarn stash closet, was like, pick me, pick me. And I was like, oh, okay. So the yarn is very happy that it actually gets to be used in such a cool way. So here I just did a plain old garter stitch, which is just knit back and forth, and that's how that looks up. So cool, right? I love it. It's got some really good squish to it. And then I did the same thing on another section, this section here, where I knitted it. So you actually knit and purl back and forth. So you get this really interesting contrast between the two. So here's knit, regular, which you think of when you think of knit. Love how the yarn is giving this really great pattern all the way through. And then this is just a plain old garter stitch, right? So really different concepts. And when you do knit, it just does. It curls. Don't worry about it. If you've never knit before, you're like, oh, it just does, right? But it's going to be a panel. So as I stitch it to the other sides, it's going to square itself out, just like these guys did here. So I'm almost done. This is the back here. So it's 5 panels deep by 4 panels wide. And, you know, so I'm going to have to block it I don't care. That's fine. I'm gonna have to block it. And then these little tassels that are coming and hanging out, I'm not being sloppy. I'm really not. That's what the pattern calls for. So when it's all said and done, I'm gonna go through and look at all my little tassels hanging out here, maybe cut them down to a smaller size, manageable size. And then I'll show you like how I stitched it up along the back. So, and then these are going to be the front panels. So these are actually going to be like the sleeves that are going to come down like this. So when I'm doing the mattress stitch, that's the stitch that I prefer to use when I'm sewing garments together. It just gives it a really nice clean stitch. And obviously because these pieces are curling, I'm going to go ahead and just use my stitch markers and pin these down. So here's these two pieces. Now remember, these little tassels are supposed to be out on the front, and we're looking at the back of the stitch right now. So I'm going to just take these and just tuck them around into the front, and take these guys and tuck them around into the front so they kind of stay out of the way. And then I'm just going to use my stitch markers and make sure that they match up really good. So I'm going to tuck right into the back of this stitch and into this stitch here. Just kind of hold those guys in place. Make sure that it all lines up really good. So these guys here I'm going to tuck in, and then if there was any there, I would tuck those in as well. And I make sure that they line up. Just helps you keep your work nice and straight as you're going through it. So I'll just line those guys up there. Now to do your mattress stitch, what you're going to get is a darning needle like this. And you can use, if you want to, you can actually use some scrap yarn from this pattern here, from these yarns. You're still not going to really see the yarn come through, but in some instances you might want to use that accent color that you're going to be able to see it pop through the other side. So here I'm going to do, I've got my darning needle here, and I've just grabbed some yarn that I have. I'm going to go ahead and hold these guys together here at the bottom to make sure everything stays really nice and crisp. And then again, you want to make sure that these little ties end up in the front. So what I'm actually going to do is go ahead and tie these guys just to hold them in place, and then tuck them right under. And then you can tie them in a knot and give them tight, you know, make them nice and tight when you're all done. So what you do with the mattress stitch is you come in into the one side here, bring the yarn through, and you could tie a knot right there if you wanted to. Then what you're going to do is you're going to go to the diagonal on the opposite, and you're going to go right into that very first stitch, like into the side of it, and then you just pull it through. Then you're going to go and find the same, but on the opposite side. So now I'm going to go into the green and just reach across. And then I'm going to go back over to the cream, and you just go into the first. Make sure you're grabbing enough yarn that it's going to hold it in place. Now I'm going to go back across over to the green, and you just crisscross all the way up your work. And what's nice is you make it a little bit loose, and then when you get some good stitches in there, a couple, then you're just going to go ahead and tighten it up. So we just basically go back and forth and back and forth, and this is just called the mattress stitch. And we just pull it through. I'll just do a couple more here. Making sure that you're not splitting any of the yarn, the fibers, and you're giving yourself enough. Now that's probably enough. Now see, you can see where those stitches are right in here that I've just done. Now watch, if I just pull this a little tight, it cinches the whole thing up, and you can even pull it from down below. It cinches the whole thing up so you can't really even see those stitches, and it's totally invisible on the opposite side. So you just go ahead and tighten it up, and then you just continue to move all the way up. Once I get to my next block, then I will move these stitch markers down here, and then I'll just move it all the way up so that it's going to be nice and straight all the way up to the end. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for each row that I do. And that's what I did here. Now you can see over here that I used the mattress stitch just along the sides here. So that actually was two yarn colors coming together. So I used the mattress stitch along this side here, and I used this color yarn. So I just did that crisscross all the way down and then tightened it up. But when you're over on the back side, you can't see it at all. So this is actually the front side. and then this here is the inside. So you can't even see those stitches. So if you want that contrast, then you can use a totally different color. But typically when you're doing a mattress stitch, the best thing to do, I just used this color so you could actually see what I was doing, but the best thing to do is to use one of the two colors. So I would either, in this instance, probably use either the beige or the green if I didn't want to see the stitches at all. If I didn't care and I wanted to see some of those stitches and give it that contrast, then I could use, you know, something like this that you might end up seeing throughout the stitches. Okay, so that's it for this week's tutorial on the Harry Styles cardigan. Basically, it's pretty much all knitted up, and now I'm just going to go ahead and attach the sleeves, and then I'm going to do the garter, so then, or rather the border. So next week's tutorial is going to be bringing it all together. The border you do separately. So I'm going to use a red Aran weight yarn. Now remember, this pattern calls to use a super bulky weight, like a weight of 6. I'm using a weight of 5, so it's going to be a little bit lighter, but I'm still going to be using an Aran weight. So this is my Aran weight in the blue that's going to go down the seams here. And then the border is going to, if I have the Aran weight in the red, I will do that. Otherwise, I might end up using something else. But because it's going to give you a little bit of stretch, because the border is a ribbing, you might want to go down a size in your yarn. So if you're using, like I'm using a bulky, so going down to Aran's going to be fine. But if you had like super bulky, just, you know, kind of whatever you had. I didn't, even though I did buy the yarn and I made this sweater, the yarn was kind of part of my stash. Like I bought it and didn't realize what I was going to do with it. And then I just happened to find this sweater shortly after. So the idea is if you've got it, like I would just do scraps. I would just find scraps, but I'm loving how this turned out. Isn't this cool? Like I feel so hip and young. I feel like wearing this is going to make me, I don't know, maybe like 30 years. Well, I don't want to go 30 years younger. Maybe 30. We'll see. Anyways, so next week we're going to be bringing you the ribbing that's going to go around the collar, and it's going to have a nice big collar, and it's going to have the cuffs and then the border around the bottom. So we'll be showing you all of that. This is my tutorial on the Harry Styles cardigan in the knit. You can also do it in crochet. I've included that picture there. And so have fun with it. And make sure you stay tuned, like and subscribe so you can see all the other videos I've got going on, all the tutorials, all the reviews, all the podcasts, all right here. This is Kimberly with Knit for Brains. Thanks so much for joining me. Thanks for subscribing. And as always, I'll see you soon.